leader of the 3rd Squad of the Shinsengumi.
Shizo Hijikata, assistant leader of the Shinsengumi. Okita, I recommend that you stand down. That man over there, the infamous Batosai, the master. People's wolves are here. It's the Shinsengumi.
What is up, guys? DT Ninja here to give you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido Arc Chapter 45 review. Okay, guys, as you guys know, Chapter 45 is the finale of the death battle between Hyobe, the skull of the Kinkaku Heki, Abe of the Goryo Eiji, and of course Nagakura and Saito of the Shinsengumi. Now, I have the chapter here, so we're going to get an in-depth look, and I'm going to share some interesting things that I noticed, as well as give you guys a little overview of the chapter as we look at it. So before we get to that though, I want to share a new item that I got. This is from the pop-up store Loft. So it's a very rare item, but I found it on Mercari. You can find it on Amazon Japan. I noticed they have a lot in stock. But yeah, you have to have an Amazon Japan account. But anyways, here is what it looks like. Volume 2 illustration of Kenshin and Kaoru. No text. The only text down here is Rurouni Kenshin. Really beautiful. This is great for my collection as well as for the Hokkaido arc. So if you guys see this in my discussions from now on, that's where it's from. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a look. It's really awesome, really beautiful. Alright guys, now we're going to take a closer look at chapter 45. Let's go into the chapter. This is the first page, and you guys can see the very first thing says, "What do you mean we're a false army?" And so we see this banner flag look, you know, like a banner that looks like a flag, and then you see the kind of blood stains here. This says Seki Hotai 2nd Unit. So this is also part of Captain Sagara's group. Now, Unit 1 is the leader of Unit 1 is Captain Sagara. This is Unit 2, so it's a different unit, but it is the same type of army. So we're a false imperial army is what it's saying. And then you get Abe and Washio. These two have been together for a long time. They were in the Goryo Eiji together. They were in the Shinsengumi together. And we can see failure after failure with these two. You can see Abe's face here showing his, disappointment. He's upset that it's saying Captain Sagara is going to be killed. He's going to be beheaded. So Washio's saying, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? We're going to be reassigned. Is this going to keep happening? And then it just shows Washio here, and he's sitting down. He's like, oh man, just when we snuck into this group, we thought we were going to be victorious, and now it's another failure. He says after Abe-Nakoji's failure and the assassination attempt on Asami Kondo, which is the Shinsengumi commander, that was a failure as well. This is another failure. So it's interesting to see Abe's perspective here. He just keeps failing and failing. According to himself, he's just a big failure because he hasn't been actively fighting in these groups. Throughout Abe-Nakoji, we never saw Washio or Abe use a sword. We've never seen them fight. In fact, they are samurai. They are samurai, but they never fight. So it's interesting how we see their perspective. But here we're seeing Abe's mindset. Right, he sees the image of Hattori Sensei again. Don't throw away your lives. Live on in the new era. So I think he misinterprets what he says, and I mentioned this several times. And then he says, whether I fight or whether I don't fight, I can't seem to win. Will I keep losing like this? So we really do see the inner self of Abe and how he kind of reflects on those failures, and he thinks you have to win. It's all about winning. And it kind of reminded me a little bit about Shishio's ideology, where life is merely a game where the fittest survive. Because if you win, you know that's good. But if you lose, you know it's the end. So that's kind of his mindset in a way, I feel. And you could also say it's similar to Sojiro, because in the fight after Kenshin defeats Sojiro, he says your idea was right, your way was right, and he's like, no, it's not. You find that reason on your own. And so we really do see that Abe is lost. He's confused, and he misinterprets Hattori Sensei's words. But anyways, I wanted to point that out. It's pretty neat. And it really does reflect Abe's journey as well. That's why I feel like Abe is really developed well. It shows his failures, and it shows the reason why he jumped in to fight against this Kinkaku Heki. It wasn't merely just for revenge of the Shinsengumi. It was because his own failures, or supposedly his own failures, were too much. He wanted to fight with honor for the Goryo Eiji. He wanted to show his strength, and finally he gets a chance to do that. So anyways, okay, now we got Kenshin here, and he's posing with a Gatotsu stance. This is basically a reflection of Saito, that Saito is going to be fighting in this chapter. And of course, we do see him fight. So that's a pretty cool reference to Saito there. Okay, and then it goes on showing Matasuke, the younger brother, Hyobei brother, and he's mocking Abe, telling him, show him his death and show him everything that he has, and this is going to be, the way to go out. And then you see the Shinsengumi basically concerned because Abe is, really injured here. You see blood, dripping everywhere. He's concerned over that. And then we see, it looks like Matasuke basically goes ahead on and attacks him. What's interesting about this is it's not the blade that cuts. You can see there's some kind of energy with that spiral. You see it spiraling. Now, I don't feel that that's an actual blade, because those are the blades, but this seems to be some sort of energy coming from the blade, and that's actually what cuts the gun in half. It cuts that in half. You can see Abe holding it, and then he's like, I see it, I see your death. And then he even mocks him. He says, you were eaten by Mibu's wolves, so die like a dog. So he basically says, this is the end. This is your death. So he waits to the very last moment. Abe, you can see it. I'm going to you can see how close he is to basically killing him. And then out of nowhere, he waits and then fires a secret hidden gun in his sleeve, and fires at point-blank range, and it shoots right through Matasuke's hand. And that just shocks everyone, including Matasuke. Matasuke didn't expect it, and that was just awesome. It just showed intellect, it showed strategy, it was just badass. It was the moment where, you can say that Abe, even though he's not a swordsman, even though he really hasn't had any active fighting throughout the Aburonakoji incident, throughout all of his past, but here he finally gets his moment. I feel like this is his shining moment, and it really was pretty awesome. And then he explains about the handgun and the apple shooting in his orchard. And then, of course, he calls him a smartass, and he uses his other blade to try to hit him. And then he gets shot again. Now, what's great about this is it's not Abe this time, because Abe doesn't have anything left. It's actually Mishima. It's actually Mishima from the Sapporo clock tower. You can see it all the way up there with the clock. What's great about this is they did not leave out Mishima. Mishima has been an interesting character throughout the Hokkaido arc, but for him to actually land a shot, and he's not an expert on the enemy, was great to see. It was really awesome. I'm glad they didn't forget it. Then the police kind of jump into action. They start firing. They realize, hey, he can be hit now. And then he calls them all worms. And then he says, "Don't underestimate me." And he starts firing. They fire like wildly, and you can see the blades start kind of going everywhere, and some of the energy hits. And then, of course, the swordsmen jump into action. So this is kind of karma. Because that Matasuke said it's one versus everyone. Now everyone is jumping into action. Now he's harmed. Now he can be hurt. So then the leader of this swordsman group says, "We're not cowards. You were the one who brought this on yourself." And then, of course, Matasuke is sitting there with blood seeping out, getting hit. He's finally getting injured. He's like, "You worms, you little worms." And then here we see Nagakura and Mataza, the older brother. And Nagakura explains. He explains based off of what Mataza said. He said, because there's not 4 swords anymore in your attack, the sword is dulled. So the attack is less powerful. And because of that means your brother is weak in defense. And then you can see Mataza's face. It just says, "You hit the nail right on the head. My brother's in serious trouble," because he does not have good defense. I like how they focused on that face. And then the next page, you see kind of the smoke in the battlefield, in the middle of the battlefield. You see Saito getting right next to Abe. I like how they have their kind of stare down. And then he's like, "So you had a trump card hidden. You had that hidden gun." And he's like, "What, you surprised? You were the one who surprised Ito and Hattori Sensei in the past. That's the reason I prepared for this." So the reason why he was so prepared is because in the past, the Shinsengumi supposedly surprise attacked Hattori Sensei and Kashitaro Ito. So that's the reason why he was prepared. That's the reason why we saw this. Okay, the next page. We have Abe basically showing here, he's taking off his glove here, and he says, "I'm out of bullets. I'm out of guns. Everything has come to an end. The battle is over." And then he showed him throwing his gun and his glove on the ground, and he says, "I'm going home." And you see kind of this walking away from Saito. And the interesting thing about this is that, yes, finally he had his chance to give everything he had and actively participate in the battle. But even though he did all that, he believes it's still a failure. After all this time, even though he had that badass moment, in his mind, he believes it's a failure. But everything has come to an end. So, even though he's failed, he believes that, everything is ended here. And so, he still kind of doesn't understand Hattori Sensei's words. Even there. But if you interpret it a different way, this could mean he's finally returning to the Meiji era, in a way. Because finally the battle is over, I'm going home to the Meiji era. But he's still a little confused about the words that Hattori Sensei said. So anyways, you can see he's still pissed off. He says, "I don't want to see you, Shinsengumi, win. I don't want to see you win." So then Saito's there behind him, and he says, "That's why I told you to go home in the first place. Someone who has found a way to live other than by the sword has no reason to go on the battlefield in a death fight, in a death battle. No reason to be on the battlefield and fight for your life." So I like how Saito reminds him of Hattori Sensei's words. Basically, it's the same thing. Basically, don't throw away your life here, but live on in the new era. It's the same exact thing. He's saying, you have found a way to live in the new era other than putting your life on the line. So why are you on the battlefield? And we all know the real reason, because he feels like he was a failure all this time. But I like how Saito really does remind him of Hattori. And then he says, "Don't worry, we will not let these guys, disrupt the new era. The Shinsengumi and the strong ones we defeated, will put an end to them. And he's like, And then you see him with his apple. He pulls out an apple, but this time it's different. If you notice, the apple has, the image of his family. Not only of his family, but of Mishima, which is Eiji Mishima. So that moment where they were all like a family, that is showing now when he has the apple in front of him. So before, that was not there. But now, after the battle, he's finally able to see the Meiji era. He's finally able to move on from the past. So I really like how that's shown, because that really does show his development. It shows all the people that had to get through to him. Mishima's there, so obviously the kid got to him. Nagakura helped him see that, his family's there. Saito helped him. So Abe has really had quite of a journey. Okay, and then we see Saito here coming out of the smoke here, and you see the swordsman having a little trouble. Matasuke, he is really tall, by the way. And then he notices something. He's saying, why is he so bad at defense? So you see him wildly swinging his sword. The energy's coming out, but he's still getting shot at. So then you see this pose here, just like his Gatotsu stance, really awesome. And then Matasuke is like, well, it's the Gatotsu, but he's got a broken blade. He can't possibly get me. And then he notices, well, he hasn't noticed yet, but it's Mataza's sickle blade. So he uses the enemy's blade. Use whatever you can to win the fight, right? And then he notices suddenly, and then he's screwed. So then Saito jumps into action. And then you see him get him with the Gatotsu right through the blades. He tries to block it with the blades crossing each other, but it shatters all of his defenses. The blades break, and so does it gets right through Matasuke. And then we see him fall to the ground. Well, actually, he doesn't fall to the ground, which is shocking. He doesn't fall to the ground. He's just bleeding profusely. And then Saito says, this blade is too dull, it's no good. And then we see the police officers and Sapporo and the swordsman of fake Aratomo Yamagata's group. And he basically says, I'm going to leave it to the little worms, as you call them. But then he goes on to say, be cut down by your own futile, reckless attack. And then he says, that's the kind of death you deserve. So this really does reflect the ideology, the mindset of Saito, kill or be killed. Aksog-san, you can see it right in his eyes. You deserve to die. So I love how they kept that for Saito. And then, of course, he gets fired on. He's basically defeated here. This is where Matasuke is defeated. Now, that is one side. Then you see Nagakura's side. Mataza's there with Nagakura. He says, Nagakura, Shinpachi, you do not believe in Aksog-san anymore. And he says, yeah, but we should get those wounds healed for you. And he's like, wow, you still hold on to your own beliefs? So he's kind of surprised. And then he's like, well, you're probably trying to do that so you can interrogate us. And he's like, wow, you caught me. So be it. And then he cuts himself. He cuts him right in the throat himself. He slits his own throat. And he basically falls down. Nagakura's shocked. And then he's trying to stop him, but it's too late. He says, for me, being strong is everything. The Kenkaku Heki, everything is about strength. And then you see him on the ground, and he's talking about his brother, how he was stronger than him, and he had to look out for him, even though if his brother remains, that's all that matters to him, which is pretty heartfelt, honestly. The brother is protecting the brother. And that's what Nagakura notices. He notices here. He is really brilliant and very smart. He says, so that's it. You were protecting your brother. So we actually see Mataza here, and he pushes his brother aside while holding the blade. You can see he's holding the blade. And he gets, there's the other blade there. And it gets cut, and that's how his arm gets cut off. And you'll notice there you see this thing on his back. That's actually an armor. So when it gets cut, that armor gets cut off as the blade comes down and slices through Hyobe. And then the last page shows Nagakura basically saying, well, it can't be helped. And then you see Saito smoking a cigarette. He pulls out Moonlight. Now remember, in this arc, the Shinsengumi elegy, we see Hyobe is kind of represented as, you know, the darkness. And we see kind of the moonlight cigarettes representing the one taking out, the darkness. So I found that interesting, that reference to his cigarettes. And then, of course, he walks towards them. And then you see what he says at the end. He says, well, because of your noble sacrifice, I'll spare your brother's life. So again, you get two different sides. You get Nagakura, who is incredibly skilled, but his mindset is very different from Saito. Saito is kill or be killed, Aksok-zan. But here, you got Nagakura. He is very understanding of what his brother did, what Mataza did for his brother. So he's willing to understand him and, be more merciful. So I like how you have two different sides. One, just kill or be killed, and the other more merciful. So anyways, that's the chapter, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, there will be a discussion, and that discussion will include color scans. It may be a little while before it, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.